Commissioner, welcome to the program here. Let's talk about the politics of this in just a moment. I want to address the legalities of it first here. General Paxton argues the state constitution is clear. The funds need to go to a public purpose. What is the public purpose of these funds?
The public purpose is very clear. It's to reduce poverty. It's to help the poorest of the poor. About 750,000 families in Harris County would fall into these poverty guidelines. And what we did was target the poorest zip codes and put together a system for people to apply. But the goal, the public purpose is to get people out of poverty. Let me tell you, when we get people out of poverty, just as we did with many of the funds that came to various businesses and to our citizens during COVID, rental relief, it's not the first time that we or other counties or cities in Texas or the state of Texas have had similar programs like this. So I think it has nothing to do with the Constitution. I mean, the Texas Constitution was written during Reconstruction. It's interesting. I did a little research that we even a couple of African Americans in the legislature, about 6 during that Reconstruction era. For what it's worth, we started 2 years late. That's why we celebrate Juneteenth. Slavery didn't end here as quick as it did everywhere else. But
Right.
No, this has nothing to do with the Constitution. There are many programs. Part of what I think General Paxton and my former Republican colleagues in the state legislature ought to be worried about is that slippery slope. What about vouchers? I mean,
Well, I want to ask you about that in just a moment here too. But before we get down to that, let me get into this. Harris County is using federal money on this. Why would the state take issue with federal money being spent? It's not state dollars.
my best guess, Daryl, is that these are intelligent people. I always remind my colleagues, it's not personal, it's politics. They're doing polling data, and they know that Harris County, being 5 million people, larger than 25 states. At some point, as Harris County goes, the state of Texas will go. And I know that the Grand Old Party has a lock, and unfortunately, it's the far right element of the Republican Party. These are not George Bush. You're from Dallas. These are not George Bush Republicans who are running the state of Texas. This is far right, MAGA extremists. Whatever red meat works, I suspect the polling data indicated. Although San Antonio had a program, Austin had a program, Houston had a program with some philanthropic money. El Paso County had a program.
Well, why is the AG going after them, I wonder?
I think the decision is put a target on Harris County. Look, this county had gone for Democrats in presidential elections for many years before Democrats took control of this county. I think they were shocked when Judge Hidalgo won and Commissioner Adrian Garcia won. They were not shocked when I won 8 years ago because I had the Democratic precinct where they stuck in redistricting. They stuck all the Democrats in that one. And obviously, when we got control, we unpacked them. We want to share some of those Democrats with other precincts. And they went to court to do it. They are angry because Democrats control Harris County. That's why it's so big. That's the difference. Democrats pretty much control Dallas County where you are. But the difference here is Democrats control it and it's bigger than 25 states. I mean, that's about 20% of the state's population.
Absolutely. If this gets to the Texas Supreme Court, obviously the majority there is conservative. What do you expect to happen?
I hope that the Chief Justice and members of that court will rise above the far right element that controls that party. They're elected, but by and large, they're good people. And they may not agree with me philosophically on so many issues. And within the law, I think that they will be concerned about the precedent that they will set. If they strike this program down, I'm a lawyer. We obey the law. Even when I don't like the rules, even when I'm convinced the rules are immoral and unethical, I'm a lawyer. I'm trained to respect the rules of engagement. That's the process. Yeah. But I think they will think about what precedent they will set. Are you going to strike down a bunch of these giveaways that go to billionaires? What about the program that the state did, bailing out, giving money to utilities that made a fortune after that freeze anyway? You just think of vouchers, all kinds of giveaways that state government does. I think it's a slope that they will be worried about setting a precedent. And there are people on the left as well as the right, independently funded groups that may decide to challenge a host of other programs
Well,
that cities and counties have.
let me ask you about that. Commissioner General Paxton argues that public money, the Constitution says, can't go to individuals for private use. When I was reading this, it sounds a lot like school vouchers here. Do you expect that will be part of Harris County's defense?
Look, we got a great county attorney. I was joking with him. He went to WashU's law school, which is a great law school.
In St. Louis.
I only went to University of Texas, but Christian Menifee is young. He's gifted. He's a very talented lawyer, and I'll leave it to him. Hey, you remember that old line in law school about the worst fool you have is one that wants to be their own lawyer. But I'll take his guidance. Well, I know there are precedents that would be set, and which is why I think the Texas Supreme Court will be cautious.
This doesn't sound too different from what Republicans want with school vouchers to me.
It sounds exactly like school vouchers. And a number of my former colleagues who are still active in politics, some who are no longer in politics, have called me jokingly saying, Rodney, you may come up with a way to kill vouchers if they really strike this down.
What's the reaction from your constituents so far on this?
A lot of shock and dismay. Look, I believe that we have to have two parties. That competition is good. But at the end of the day, when an election is over with, I served in the Texas Senate 26 years, and I fight vigorously in an election. But when it's over with, I'd always say I have to work with whoever the good Lord sends me. Even if there's some in my party I could do without. If they elect it, you got to work with them. And I think people are really dismayed to think that the state of Texas, with all of the giveaways that have come out of state government in particular, that they would decide to go after a program for the poorest of the poor. It's really akin to that argument Texas still uses not to draw down the Affordable Care money. Billions of dollars that could help keep the healthcare private hospitals afloat. All the private hospitals say do it. They won't take it because they're following that MAGA line, thinking it will help them in their primaries. And so I just think people are hurt. Look, I haven't talked to these families. We can't release their names, but
Sure.
Obviously they see press accounts. We've let them know about the lawsuit. We don't know what will happen between now and April 24th, which is when the first checks would go out to 1,900 families for $500 a month. I'm sure these are people who were banking on those checks. And many of them are still maybe in houses without lights on, without air conditioning. Some may not have water. Some haven't shelters paying the rent, and they are praying that those checks will come in because they were hopeful that they get them. And it really gives them a chance to lift themselves out of poverty.
Commissioner, we know the political realities in the state. Obviously, Harris County is a Democratic county. The Republican state of the legislature is Republican. The majority of courts are Republican here. When it comes down to it, do you expect that these 1,928 families in Harris County are going to get this money?
I'm going to do everything I can, going all the way to the Texas Supreme Court to fight it. This will start out at the trial court here in Harris County. It'll skip the appellate court in Austin, Third Court of Appeals, which is very respected appellate court. Many of these state issues go there. It'll go straight to the Texas Supreme Court. I just don't know. This is one where I wish that I could say, Jason, that I know, but I just don't know. And I'm hoping I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to give these people as much advance notice as possible, whether or not the checks are coming or are not coming. And to a great extent, we have to rely on the media, by the way, because people in this condition are not people who check in their text messages all day. The cell phone may not work. And if they have email, they may not have access to the internet. So it's a big challenge.
And last question, just for clarification for people who don't follow this issue and haven't followed other Texas cities and counties that have done it, what do you expect the majority of these people to spend that money on?
All of the studies that have been conducted around the country show that the majority of these people spend this money on necessities. They spend it on rent, they spend it on food, they spend it on childcare. Some use it to get an Uber or left to work, or bus, or buy a bicycle to get to work. You know, the concept of universal basic income is a concept that has been around for a very long time. Martin
Sure.
Luther King advanced it. Dr. Milton Friedman, conservative, Chicago School of Economics, was adamantly for it. Richard Nixon, of all people. Now, I jokingly say, I can't think of anything else that Richard Nixon, Martin Luther King, and Dr. Milton Friedman would have agreed on. But the concept's been around a long time, letting these people decide what to do. Now, I did tell a reporter with the Wall Street Journal, will I say nobody will be a jackass? No, I'm in Texas. You know, we have a number of folk that end up in that the jackal category. Someone may do something that we are embarrassed over, but the vast majority of the people from the studies, and now many of them, if your viewers just Google it, there have been well-documented academic studies showing people talking and making the case that it works. It's a pilot program.
Right.
I'm appreciative to the Biden administration for this money. It gives us an opportunity to do it. And I hope that we're able to move forward with the program.
Commissioner, thank you for the insight. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.